introduction and for the kind words about poli-sci. And I want to thank Dr. Wall also for the invitation to come and speak to you. I'm really excited always when I have an opportunity to come back to Missouri State. And I have to say that Com Week didn't exist when I was a student, so it's really fun for me to see so many of you here, and I'm really excited for you that you have a chance as a student to hear the experiences of professionals, because I think that sometimes that transition from being a student into the working world can be kind of scary. So I hope that we can provide some information and advice that makes it less so. I talked to Shauna just a couple minutes ago, we were introduced, and I think that our talks are going to complement each other, which is great. She will talk about sort of her path, and I'm going to talk about the meanderings, because I think that's really, for me, more interesting. Maybe I meandered too far, and that's how I ended up in the poli-sci field. But when I got the flyer and it said Alumni Stories of Professional Excellence, I was thinking about what I wanted to share, and it's kind of intimidating because I really think of myself as a work in progress. It's hard to think about excellence because for me, there's always an opportunity to grow and change, and some of that I'll talk about in a little bit. But also for me, it's less about the destination, you know, where you end up excelling, and it's really about the journey. So I think that's sort of the common thread between our talks, that what's interesting is the journey and how you get to where you're going, because that's where you learn so much. So 3 stories came to mind that really, I think, are integral to what I feel is my personal and professional success at this point. And I'm going to talk about the personal too, because I think that's really important. And these 3 stories involve a mailbox, 2 wheels, and an extension ladder. So first, the mailbox. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is me as a freshman. I'm on the far right. With my roommates, and you can see that we were still SMSU at that time, so we were proud SMSU Bears. And we were frequent patrons at Paradise Donuts. Does anybody know Paradise Donuts? Yes? Oh, good. I don't feel quite so old. So Paradise Donut Shop is a little donut shop, or was a little donut shop in Kimberling City, and we thought it was the most amazing place because our understanding of it was that they were open from like midnight till 7:30 a.m. So of course it made it a fun adventure to go and get donuts, which we all loved very much. When I wasn't on road trips to get donuts or trying to make my hair as big as possible, which was the trend back then, I was a really studious student. I studied a lot. I was involved with the Student Judicial Commission. I worked in the admissions office, and I was a university ambassador. I was in a sorority. So I was always thinking about my future, and I was always really focused on my professional life, maybe even to the detriment of having fun. So I did a lot of internships, and I want to just kind of pause for a minute and put in a plug for internships. I did 5 of them when I was a student. And they were so valuable to me because in addition to gaining professional experience and getting to practice conducting yourself in a professional environment, they teach you what you don't want to do. That's the best thing I can say about internships. I was sure, because I was a comm management or PR major, that I wanted to work in a PR firm. And I got an internship in a PR firm, and I hated it, because all I did was sit in a room and write. And I thought, I want to be the spokesperson. I want to be out there interacting with people. So what I thought I wanted to do was not what I ended up wanting to do. So I would highly encourage you to take advantage of opportunities to do internships while you're a student. But, so the fall semester of my junior year, I had already done a couple of internships, and I started thinking, I want to have fun. I'm so serious, and I'm so studious, and I want to do an internship that's a lot of fun. So what do you think I thought I wanted to do? I thought I wanted to do the Disney internship. right? Because I thought, what could be more fun than putting on a Minnie Mouse costume and walking around for 10 hours? And I was just sure that I wanted to do Disney, and I thought, my geography wasn't very good at the time, so I can envision myself working and going to the beach. Orlando is not on the beach, so yeah, totally. But it was I had my mind set that I was going to do Disney. My co-op counselor, Suzanne Ferguson, had a different idea for me, and Suzanne said, no, you need to apply for the legislative internship. You need to go to the state capitol and do the legislative internship. And this wasn't entirely unappealing because, remember, I was kind of an ambitious one, and so the idea of working in the halls of government seemed kind of appetizing. But I really thought my senior year is going to be so serious, and I'm going to be job hunting, and I have time to be professional. I want to be Minnie Mouse. And so that was my plan. And I was doing an internship at the time, this was the fall of my junior year, at a PR firm. This is when I decided I didn't want to do PR. And the night of the Disney campus interview session, I was wrapping up things at work, and I walked out to mail a FedEx package in the overnight box, last thing I had to do, and I put it in the UPS box instead of the FedEx box. Which might seem like not a big deal, except that I can't get it back out. Like, I tried. I all but threw myself into the bin. It wouldn't come, I mean, all I could do is wait for the UPS person to come, empty the box, give me the package back. And by that time, the FedEx person had come and gone, so then I had to drive it out to the airport, to the shipping, the real center. And all of that is to say that by the time I got back from the airport, it was 9 o'clock, and the Disney internship was history. So I totally kind of screwed up my own plan by accident, but I embraced the idea of doing the next best thing. So I applied for the legislative internship, and I was selected to do that. That's meander number one. It caused me to postpone my graduation by a semester because as a legislative intern, I only got 6 hours of credit. So I remember that being kind of a hard decision for me at the time. Can I afford to postpone graduation? And all I can say to you is it was really worthwhile and very much worth the extra semester that I spent finishing up with school, because it was very important to my eventual career path. I was assigned to work with the women legislators of Missouri, the Women's Caucus. And the president of the Women's Caucus at that time is the woman who I'm standing there with. Again, you probably can't see it, there's a lot of hair. And she was 28 years old, and I was 20. So to work with this woman who was elected to the legislature when she was 26, and she was at this time 28, I was really inspired by her. And so being in this environment and learning about government and meeting young women and older women, but meeting women who are involved in government and public policy making was really exciting to me. And she became a mentor. She's still a close mentor and friend. And she helped me get a summer internship in Washington, D.C., so I spent that summer in Washington. And I really, really learned a lot. And so here I am with her, and then Boomer came to the Capitol, and there I am with Boomer. So after graduation, in spite of all my interest in government, I think I thought I wanted to make money. So I got a job with the ACT company, and all of you know ACT, right? Because you took it. And I, through my admissions experience, met some folks at the ACT company, and I worked out of their Chicago field office. My job was to travel to colleges and universities in Missouri, Michigan, and Iowa, and help them utilize all that great information that you provide when you're filling out your application for the ACT about what you're interested in and what extracurricular things would be important to you. I would help them use that to recruit students. So that's why, how many of you got like 75 to 150 brochures after you took the ACT, because these colleges are trying to market to you. So I was helping them do that. And believe you me, it was my first job. My office had a real door. I had real business cards. I thought I was the bomb. And it was a really great job. But traveling turned out to be not as glamorous as I thought it would be. Because I was on the road probably 4 days a week. I was driving much of it. That made it really hard for me to build a life in Chicago, because it made it hard for me to make friends and feel like I was building a life there. And so it turned out to be sort of a difficult time, because here I'd been so focused on my career and how I was going to be this awesome professional, and then I have it, and I was thinking, is this all there is? Like, this is what I was working hard for all those years. So it became kind of it was kind of a difficult time. I also got the mumps during that period, which, I'm sorry I don't have a picture of that. I wouldn't let my roommate take it, but it would have been really instructive for the story. So on my 25th birthday, I remember I had done a workshop in Des Moines, Iowa. I had driven to Columbia, Missouri, which is about 5 hours. And I roll into Columbia at 9 o'clock that night with my suitcase and my rolly bag and my computer bag and my box full of documents, because I'm doing a meeting the next day. And this man held the door open for me, and he said, "You look exhausted." And I burst into tears because I was 25, and I thought, I am not supposed to be exhausted. And so I was feeling really stuck. And I decided I have got to do something to get unstuck. And I didn't know what it was. And then this colleague who worked with me at ACT said one day, "Hey, I'm going to do Ragbrai." And I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Ragbrai, but it's the Register's Annual Great Bike Ride Across Iowa. That's what it stands for. And so she was doing Ragbrai. And this is a friend who had asthma and a bad knee. And so I took one look at her and I thought, if she thinks she can ride her bike across Iowa, surely I can ride my bike across Iowa. So I signed up, and then I went and bought a bike. And then I rode my bike around the forest preserve by my house. It was a 3-mile loop, so I would go on these training rides where I would do like 5 loops around the forest preserve. To prepare for this bike ride, which was 6 days and 464 miles, starting on the western side and riding over to the eastern side. And so here I am, halfway through, soaking wet, on my bike. But let me tell you, when I finished this, when I got to the very end, I was as emotional that day as I was on my 25th birthday, because I was so inspired by what I had done. Because when it started, when I signed up, my friends were like, "Are you sure? You could kill yourself doing this." I mean, I really had moments of great anxiety about what I had signed up to do. And so to have set this goal and chipped away at it, riding around the forest preserve, and then finally riding 464 miles on my bike, I felt like I was really inspired by what I'd been able to do. And I decided at that point that every 5 years I'm going to do something challenging, something that inspires me when I'm done. And so here I am 5 years later doing my first and only triathlon. Here I am in 2007. I went to Belize and helped run a summer camp for kids, which might not seem like it was that, how could I think I couldn't do it? But we went with like 16 high school students, which terrified me. And the bugs in Belize are like the size of her purse. I mean, it took some getting psyched up, but as you can see, it was a lot of fun. And then in 2012, I finished the big PhD, which was, of course, that thing that it took me 14 years to do it. So this sense of accomplishment when it was over after just persisting felt really good. I share that story with you because I really think that for me, practicing resilience, practicing inspiring myself has been really, really important to my own personal success, because we can't know when those things that we don't think we can do will pop up. Some of them we can sign up for, and some of them just hit you in the middle of the night when you get a phone call that your whole life has changed. And if you've practiced doing that thing you don't think you can do, when those really hard times come up, sometimes it's instinctive, and you just find the strength to do it because you've done it before and you know that you don't think you can, but you know that you will. So I think that is a really important part, or has been an important part of my journey. So fast forward now, we'll back up, to 2002. I had an opportunity to do some advance work on a federal campaign, a campaign for the US Senate. And advance work is really fun. Advance is the team of people who goes before the candidate comes to get everything looking perfect for the TV crews and the journalists and the people who come to the event. So the funny thing is, advance people often never see the candidate, because when the candidate pulls up, that's your cue to leave, because you've got to get to the next place to get things set up for them there. But I had an opportunity to lead a team of people for a 5-day trip around the state for a candidate for U.S. Senate. And it was a really fun experience. I want to tell this story because I just want to encourage all of you, regardless of how you feel about politics, to consider volunteering time on a campaign. Find a candidate that you believe in. Doesn't matter what party you are. Doesn't matter whether the candidate is a man or a woman, quite frankly. Find a candidate that you care about and get involved, because campaigns are a great way to meet people. They're a great way to get a lot of responsibility really quickly, because campaigns are notoriously short-staffed. So you can show up to stuff envelopes one day, and 2 weeks later you can be director of volunteer operations, and 2 months after that you can be deputy campaign manager. And so imagine, you go from volunteering to being deputy campaign manager, and then you go looking for a job, and the work world is easy at that point because you've dealt in high-stress environments, you've dealt with all kinds of people. So campaigns are a really great way to get real practical experience. And you have great stories and memories, and you can have a lot of fun. This was an event where, so remember I said that the goal of the advance team is to get the venue set up for television, essentially. So when we got to this place, I'll go forward then back. If you look in the top left corner, you see the barn with the big barn door. So when I got to this site, I looked at that barn door and I thought, this is perfect. We're going to hang a banner from the down in the doorway, and we'll pull the truck up, and she'll speak in front of the banner, and it'll all work perfectly. So I say to the farmer, this is what we're going to do. This was a farmer in southeast Missouri. And he said, well, how are you going to get it up there? And I said, do you have an extension ladder? And I climbed up the ladder with my hammer in my suit pants, and I put the nails in, and then they passed the banner up, and I tied the banner and dropped it down, and this was the end result. So you can see it's just, the picture is framed, and the flags are there, and the people are there, and I think that I won the farmer over. I think he just couldn't believe that I would go climbing up this ladder in my suit. And I also let him take me into his barn and talk to me about how he artificially inseminates his cows. And I acted fascinated. And my father does raise cattle, so I mean, it isn't totally out of the realm of my life, but a little more than I really wanted to know. So all of this is to say that my path to professional excellence wasn't linear. There were a lot of these productive detours where instead of doing Disney, I did the legislative internship, which look where that led. Instead of being stuck, I did this bike ride, which led to a lot of other really great experiences. And my experience on the campaign just, I hope, along with the other things I've done, makes me a more interesting person, a more interesting, well-rounded professional. So what I want to say to you today is, have your goals, but don't be afraid to meander. And don't panic because you don't know where you're going, because there's time, and you'll eventually figure it out. For the past 16 years, I've been the manager of the Souchier Institute for Women in Public Life at the University of Missouri in St. Louis. And I use so many of the things I learned in my program here, because I do our newsletter and all of our publications, which when I was a student, we learned how to do that on a storyboard and shot the negatives for the pictures. Now I do it all on the computer, but a lot of the principles are still really relevant. I manage all of our programs and activities, including the 21st Century Leadership Academy, which is the program that Dr. Galanis mentioned. It's a week-long residential program that exposes students to women in public life, judges, elected officials, policymakers. We take a day trip to Jefferson City, and we do a debate in the Capitol, and we have lunch at the governor's mansion, and we go to the Supreme Court. It's a really great program, and Nora Cox is the advisor. So if you're interested, look her up. I've also, as in my role at the Institute, I've been our liaison to our national partnerships with efforts to increase women's political participation and participation in the judiciary. The Center for American Women in Politics at Rutgers is what I like to call the mothership of women in politics in the country, and I went with them to the White House last spring for a conference with the President's Council on Women, or I forget the exact name of it, but the White House was the part that was so exciting to me. And as Dr. Galanis said, at the end of this week, that part will come to an end, and that chapter will close, and another one will open. So the last thing I want to say to you is, don't be afraid to move on when it's time to move on. And I think the important thing about that is to know that sometimes that's professionally. I just knew that I had done everything that I really wanted to do at the Institute in the 16 years that I was there, and it was time for a new challenge. And so I'm excited about what I'll be doing from here on out. Sometimes it's also time in your personal life to just move on from whatever you're doing, whether it's friendships. I've had to move on from friendships that aren't that rewarding anymore. Obviously, we all know probably what it's like to move on from relationships that aren't feeding us anymore. So just don't be afraid, right? You have your whole life to make mistakes and take detours, but in the end, it can be a really awesome thing. And if you're lucky, someone will invite you back to talk about it. In addition to knowing when to move on, you also need to know when to stop talking. So I think my time is up. I don't know if you want to